Today we have amidst us Comrade Brinda Karat, an icon of the communist movement. So we have a few questions in this talk. Vanakkam.
Thank you.
During these 55 years, can you just recall one or two incidents which inspired you most?
Well, to join the communist movement and to join the party, it was really Vietnam which was the most inspiring struggle for me. And the fact that it was communists who could take on the most powerful imperialist power, and the way that the Vietnamese under the communist flag fought, I think that was at a time in the 60s when I was in London working there. So I think that is what really drew me to the communist movement and to Marxist ideology. But if you ask me what inspired me to join the CPI-M instead of any other, there were so many organizations at that time. It was really the experience of what I read about the Bengal Party.
Okay.
And Comrade Jyoti Basu.
Okay.
Because at that time, in the late 60s, there was a huge attack on the communists. And that was a time of the food movement. That was a time of the land struggle. That was a time of very militant working class struggles. So I think the fight against capitalism, which drew me into being part of the communist movement, I think it was Bengal really, which was the greatest inspiration for me in those years. No doubt about it.
You worked in various organizations. Yes. You worked for the gender equality in the IDWA. You also worked for the emancipation of the people. You worked for the underprivileged. You worked in the trade union movement. You worked for the agriculture. Which was the field which you feel very comfortable or which you attracted you most?
I think it was a trade union movement, really. And I don't mean the trade union movement as such, but the experience of working with textile workers during the emergency and after. I was the joint secretary of the textile union in Delhi. That was the main industry in Delhi at that time. And at that time, I think the experience of working in working class areas at the mill gate, understanding the working of capitalism in a particular sector like the textile sector. And then it is through my work in the working class areas in the trade union that I actually understood the specific areas where women are doubly or sometimes exploited triple times. So actually, the base of my work, which gave me a much wider understanding of social relations, was the trade union, was working with workers, but it expanded to understanding women and the way they are exploited in a capitalist society. And I think, that was the base of my future work.
You were the General Secretary for 11 years in All India Democratic Women's Association, and subsequently its President and Vice President. And you must have come across various incidents at that time. What was the most heinous crime that was committed?
Oh, you can't really.
Or
quite frankly, comrade, you really, when you're working against violence against women and the kind of brutality and barbarity that we see, I don't think you can really compare one case to another. Each is equally horrendous and horrific. And therefore, what we have to look at is not just the crime itself, which is bad enough, but the forces behind the crime and how such forces proliferate in a capitalist society. And right now, my main concern is the added dimension of this barbaric violence against women, which is very deeply rooted in the kind of ideologies that we see promoted in BJP RSS ruled India. Therefore, whereas we have always seen very many cases of brutal violence, today there is an added dimension. And what is that dimension? It is patriarchy, but it is linked to an ideology of communalism and casteism. So the way the ruling party reacts or its ecosystem reacts depends on the religion or caste of the perpetrator of rape or sexual assault or violence and the community and caste of the victim. This is what today is paramount in further destroying the constitutional guarantees of equality and security for women. Because when you look at violence through a communal lens, or when you look at violence through a casteist lens, obviously you can imagine the result of that, the consequences of that. And on the other hand, if you look at the way domestic violence is viewed, I mean, in India, there are an average of 6,000 to 7,000 deaths due to dowry every year. Every year. I mean, women in domestic violence, there are more women who've been killed than all the soldiers and all the wars that India has fought. But today there's a deafening silence. Have you ever heard a single BJP leader speak about dowry, speak about domestic violence?
No, on the other hand, the Union Finance Minister, Madam Nirmala Sitharaman, is telling patriarchy is only the leftist jargon. It is not actually existing. What's your comment on that?
Well, I think it is just reprehensible that a woman leader who presumably understands the country, otherwise why should she be the finance minister, but she can make a statement like this, which is so far removed from the truth, that it only shows how dominant this ideology is, which is really based in the Manusmriti and Manuvadi ideas and thoughts, and which are intrinsically anti-women, anti-poor, and anti-Dalit. And that is why you find new dimensions of patriarchy because of the role of the state in blocking the avenues of justice that we fought for and won. After all, we won so many victories in these 30 years or 40 years. India has some of the best laws in the world. But today there is a pushback, there is a backlash against it. And women are told, conform to the RSS understanding of the ideal woman, or else you will be damned as being anti-national or westernized or not understanding Indian tradition and so on.
And we are hearing comments from Supreme Court Justice like Mr. Gawai that freebies and the money that is given for the women, that is spoiling them, they are not coming for the work, and all these things.
I was so appalled by that comment that he made that I actually wrote a letter to Justice Gawai. And what I said was that I think he should understand, and not just he, society as a whole, must understand that India has, as part of its GDP, if you monetize the work that women do, unpaid work, for domestic care, for child care, for old age care, when you monetize it, according to an SBI recent report, it comes to something like 22.6 lakh crore rupees annually. That's about 6 to 7% of our GDP. So when you look at the work that women do for family survival, apart from the work they do outside, and then you talk about freebies, I mean, these are rights, and they should be institutionalized rights. But, you know, we live in a world in India today where you come across new crazy ideas all the time representing patriarchy. You just have to be alert to fight it.
Your photograph and videograph in Jahangirpuri, Delhi, has become very viral. And what made you go to the place, street, when all others are just tweeting, when all others are just commenting? What motivated you?
We are all part of the red flag, no? It's not just me. I mean, it's comrades all over India who stand before a bulldozer every day. figuratively a bulldozer, may not be a physical bulldozer, but every day our comrades across India are in a very brave resistance struggle. And in Delhi, it was a Delhi party. It was a CPI-M Delhi State Committee. We jointly decided once this horrible thing was happening, and our comrades had gone to Jahangir Puri before the incident. They had understood that area, they had gone to the police, they had tried to prevent it happening. So it was not just something that suddenly happened spontaneously and I rushed there like some, not like that. It was the Delhi party in fact has intervened on many of these issues in a very courageous way, even though it's such a small party. And we immediately contacted our lawyers, and I must congratulate the AILU General Secretary, Comrade Surendran, because he responded immediately and he went to the Supreme Court. Our other lawyer, Tara Narula, who was a very wonderful lawyer, she was representing AIDWA and went to the lower court. I went to the High Court, I think. The Supreme Court heard it first and they immediately gave a stay. And Surendran ji informed me. And then I found that they were still bulldozing the houses even after the stay order. So obviously we had to go there and tell them that, and when I went there, they refused to listen. So then we all had to go there and physically
prevent.
We had to physically. Otherwise, nobody was there to listen. The cops had disappeared. It was just rampaging 4 or 5 bulldozers under the orders of the BJP.
Civic body, BJP civic body.
Absolutely.
They wanted to...
Yeah, and the BJP leader of Delhi was on. I think he's a speaker now of the Delhi Assembly, Mr. Gupta. I have a letter written by him. What authority does he have as a political party president of Delhi to give orders to the police to act in a particular way? So what is happening is just absolutely against the constitution, against the law. And this is what we are facing today. What happened just now in Rajasthan?
Rajasthan, yes. A 1 year or 1 month old baby brutally killed. What happened?
You can't imagine what it was.
How is it happening even today?
I mean, I was in Jharkhand when I read about this. And I immediately contacted our comrades in Rajasthan.
It was very horrible. I couldn't even, it was just sleeping on the cot, not even on the floor. And some policeman is able to crush it, means something unimaginable.
The baby was covered with a blanket. They pulled the wife out. The father was sleeping with his 2 children just next to it. It was a tiny room. They are daily wage workers. There's no criminal case against them. So this is what is happening in India.
After that, was there any FIR filed against the police who committed the crime?
Nothing was done. The village sat on protest. Then they filed an FIR, but nobody has been arrested as yet.
Oh.
Nobody has been arrested. I got Imran, the father of the baby, sent me the post-mortem yesterday. And it's a rubbish post-mortem. I can show you photographs of the baby. You can see the boot mark on her face, a dark mark on her face. Her nose is bleeding. Her ear is injured. But they say there's nothing. In the post-mortem, no injuries. Photograph is showing it.
Horrible.
But what I want to say, see, when we talk about barbaric, something being barbaric, you have to go behind that to see what is it that is normalizing the worst cases of violence in India, in which people's conscience just becomes like unfeeling, like a stone. What is it? So this is the kind of politics, the kind of environment which has been created, in which an entire community is dubbed as being either criminal or terrorist or, or anti-national, an entire community. So anything that happens to that community is fine. What happened now in Holi? This is Festival of Colors.
Several masks were
they were just, and what Bajrang Dal, Vishwa Hindu Parishad, all. So this is a plan. Now, it would be quite wrong to think that this is only a minority community which is being affected. Because, in fact, it is all sections of the poor. And if you look at the corporate policies, pro-corporate policies, and its impact on India and India's economy and what's happening with India's youth, what's happening to Dalits, what's happening to Adivasis. I was at Bangalore 3 days ago, where we had a 2-day meeting of our Adivasi Adhikar Rashtra Manch. Our comrades from Tamil Nadu were there also. And across India, what we are seeing is a complete violation of constitutional guarantees for tribal communities and a bulldozing of their rights. So this is something we have to stop.
Now we are approaching towards the 24th Party Congress, CPI-M. There is one clarification issued by the Central Committee in February regarding the assessment of the Modi government with the neo-fascist characteristics and not a really neo-fascist government.
No, it's nothing. Nobody says not nearly or not really. This is a debate which is entirely created by those who do not want to accept the fact that our strategy today to fight the Modi government is the focus. And to divert attention from that, the focus today of the CPI-M is to fight the Modi government and the RSS.
No, the
we are very clear about it.
Criticism is coming even from CPI and Congress.
The CPI, they see now, as far as our left friends are concerned, because we're always open to debate and discussion and so on. Now, if the Congress has to teach us how to fight fascism and neo-fascism, that will be the day. First, let them understand what they did during the emergency before trying to teach us. So that is not the issue really here. The issue, what is the focus? And why are we fighting it? What we are saying is, in the last 10 years, what we had described as the danger of fascistic forces coming, what we are saying that in the last 10 years, that has developed into their actual characteristics being on open display. In other words, the 10 years of the BJP RSS rule in power have led to a situation where this government has already developed those neo-fascist characteristics, which is the most dangerous thing for India. And why do we use the word neo-fascism? This is a word which is used across the world today to describe many of the bigots and the extreme right-wing forces who have taken over the world. Now you look at Trump, you look at the Italian Prime Minister, you look at many of the European parties, you look at that German AfD party, which has now got quite a substantive vote, and you look at the conference which was recently held in America with all these extreme right-wing forces in which Mr. Modi was also praised. Now, do you say these are all fascist or neo-fascist? No, you describe them as extreme right-wing forces, and according to the assessment of their own countries, they are the forces you have to fight. The question you have to ask is, what happened in the last 10 years for the CPM to say that today the Modi government is actually displaying the neo-fascist characteristics that we had warned about 10 years ago? That is the question you have to ask. Don't get diverted by all these. And not only that, we have to look at it in yet another way. When we talk about pro-corporate and when we talk about the class character of this government, you have to understand that all over the world, these neo-fascist characteristics across the world have developed at a time where the whole neoliberal framework found itself in the greatest crisis after 2008, which they have not really been able to recover from. And it is a part of that framework, the utter failure of neoliberal policies, where you have to put this right-wing huge growth all over the world. So you cannot now posit it in the 1920s or 1930s because there are similarities. You have to look that after 70, 80 years and more of capitalism, the crisis of capitalism is giving birth in the absence of a strong left alternative. Instead of a strong left alternative emerging, what is emerging are these neo-fascist forces. That is the issue. Link it with capitalism. Now, many bourgeois parties don't want to do that. They would like to isolate the politics entirely from the economic framework. As communists, we cannot do that. So we have to base our analysis also on the class aspect of what neo-fascism and neo-fascist characteristics displayed by the Modi government are showing us. So that means, what is the way forward? You have to fight class exploitation. You have to fight neoliberal policies along with the big focus on communalism and the kind of hatred, and not just hatred, it's much more than that. It's a manusmriti, replacing the Constitution of India. You have to join those struggles. Now, many of our friends would like to separate it.
Okay.
They would like to say, fight this. The other thing, yes, we can think about. We'll oppose Adani, we'll oppose Ambani, but neoliberal policies, well, not really, because after all, we brought it in, etc. Don't get confused by that. And don't get confused by, have a debate, have a discussion. We always welcome that. But as communists, we have to be very clear as to why we have put this. Therefore, the fight against class exploitation and neoliberal policies and its close linkage, which is the environment in which extreme right-wing policies and neo-fascism has developed, are linked together. That is what we are trying to say in this document.
In conclusion, on the eve of the 24th Congress, as a Politburo member, in nutshell, what is the message you want to communicate to the people of India?
The message is that we in the CPIM are committed to a much wider battle, ultimately, for socialism. And all that we do today, all that we try and achieve today is linked to our goal of socialism. It is socialism and the dream and the reality of capitalism which drives us. In that wider fight for a transformational change in India towards socialism, immediately we have to resist, fight, defeat the BJP RSS, which is destroying the India that we know, democracy, secularism, and most importantly, federalism. It is bulldozing all that. But to fight that successfully, strengthen yourself. The most important thing is strengthen the CPI-M. If we have strong feet and a strong heart and a clear brain about our goals, about the fights, about the barriers we face, there's nothing to stop the CPI-M and the red flag from going forward. And that is the message of Madurai. And I'm happy that it is in Madurai that this strong message will go to the people of India.
Thank you so much for your valuable time. Nandri.